This program is sponsored in part by the Durham Library Foundation. Thank you to the Hayti Heritage Center for hosting tonight's roundtable, and Caitlin Margaret Kelly, the Public Programs Director of the Power Plant Gallery, for organizing the event. The Question Bridge is a collaborative effort between the Durham Library Foundation, the Hayti Heritage Center, and the Power Plant Gallery at Duke University. Tonight's roundtable is in conjunction with the ongoing exhibition Question Bridge, Black Males, going on now at the Power Plant Gallery at Duke University through November 21st. This is a must-see exhibit. Please do try and go if you can. We have postcards with directions you can take or talk to folks outside near the iPad on the way out for more information about parking, directions, and all that good stuff. We also have on display at the main location of the Durham County Public Library a wonderful photography exhibit by artist Roxanne R. Campbell, Divine, which she describes as an ongoing body of work on Black Greek lettered fraternities and sororities. I'd like to make a special welcome to Question Bridge artist Bayate Ross Smith, who is with us this evening. Mr. Smith is an artist, photographer, and educator living in New York City. His work explores issues and preconceived notions of identity and beauty, cultural traditions, and anthropology. Next up, I'd like to welcome Mr. Smith, who will provide some context to the origins of the Blueprint Roundtable. Mr. Smith?
All right, good evening, and again, thank you all for spending your evening with us. I know there's inclement weather, so to speak, so we appreciate you taking the time and effort to come out and spend your evening with us. I'm one of a collective of artists that created the transmedia project Question Bridge Black Males, and what Question Bridge is ultimately is a means for examining and deconstructing ideas about identity, particularly identity through demographic categories, through a video-mediated exchange of questions and answers. Through this exchange, we allow a seemingly monolithic population, in this case being Black males, to define themselves by speaking candidly and frankly to one another. The use of video allows for frank discussion and a process of listening that doesn't always happen when people are talking face to face. And for viewers who are not Black and male, it is a means of being a privileged witness to a conversation you would normally not be able to witness. Question Bridge is a transmedia project because it's part of an ongoing and evolving trend in the arts to create artistic projects that can function on multiple platforms. So in addition to being an art installation, Question Bridge is also a film that can be screened in movie theaters. We just published a Question Bridge book that is hitting stores today. It is an interactive website and accompanying mobile app. So all of you, if you have an iPhone or Android, can download the app. If you have a tablet, you can download the app and interact with the project at your leisure via your technology. We also have a high school curriculum that's aligned with core standards for grades 9 through 12. And Question Bridge is also a series of community engagement events, like the Blueprint Roundtable that's happening tonight. So the origin of the Blueprint Roundtable event stems from a question that one of our subjects in Question Bridge asked. And I'll just take another moment to give you a little bit of context for how Question Bridge functioned. Myself and my collaborators, Hank Willis Thomas, Chris Johnson, and Kamal Sinclair, traveled around the country for about 5 years, filming Black men asking and answering questions of each other via video. And the only criteria for participating in Question Bridge is that one had to self-identify as Black and male. So when we would film people, we gave them one prompt. We told them, we know you have another question for a Black male you feel different or estranged from. Look into the cameras if you're talking to them and ask your question. We then showed those questions to men we felt could answer them, and they answered, looking into the cameras if they were speaking to the original man who asked the question. And that process was then woven together to create a narrative structure. One of the questions that really struck all of us was a younger gentleman posed a question to the civil rights generation as to why they didn't leave his generation a blueprint. Consequently, intergenerational dialogue became a very significant aspect of Question Bridge. So it occurred to us that in terms of creating community engagement events, it could be great to allow for a Question Bridge style discussion to happen live and in front of an audience, and that could then be tailored to every specific community we installed Question Bridge in, so that this process could be tailored to a specific community and that community's specific issues and questions. So what will happen tonight is the men will pose questions to one another, and we have a moderator moderating the discussion, and they'll pose questions via generation and then general questions to the entire panel for a bit, and then towards the end, you'll have the opportunity to pose, as the audience, to pose questions to the panelists. So to give you a clearer feeling of what Question Bridge is, if you haven't had a chance to go to the exhibit or check out the website, we're going to show you a short video piece that's an excerpt from the installation to give you a feeling of how the installation functions. And the installation essentially, although it's a video installation, it exists on 5 channels, typically 5 video screens, so you're going to see 5 kind of miniature faces starting to pop up there, and it'll appear as if they're talking to one another. So I'll let that run, and then we'll get into the discussion and the panel that we're here to see tonight. Thank you.
I love older people. I respect older people. I live for older people because I come from somebody that's older. So first and foremost, I want to say we did do wrong. We did things, we stepped on ourselves. We did a lot of wrong things, and for the most part is I don't respect how, you look down on us, you treat us a certain type of way. It's all right. We're gonna do it for the next 30 years. We're gonna show y'all. We're gonna do what we gotta do. But my whole thing is, my first and foremost, I should have just said this from the beginning, but I'm gonna sum it up with this. Why didn't y'all leave us the blueprint? Peace.
I suppose some of us, myself included, feel like we did leave a blueprint. If you had experienced the euphoria that we felt during the 60s, when we would see one another on the corner, and there wasn't no such thing as you had to throw up some kind of gang sign. When you saw other black people, you went like this, they went like that, everything was fine. That's not the way it is now. I thought, me as an individual, because I can't speak to other people, I thought there would be a continuum. I thought if I raised my children a certain way, that things would stay that way. I thought that we were progressing. I underestimated the seriousness of our enemies. I underestimated them, that so much time and effort would be spent in dismantling those things that brought about self-esteem, those things that brought about self-love, those things that brought about respect for one another. A great deal of time and energy was spent dismantling that by our enemies. And it is our fault that we did not see that for what it was and combat it more thoroughly.
I think maybe we did leave you a blueprint. And yet, we too were so busy trying to survive that we were not as organized and disciplined as maybe we should have been. But speaking from the platform of Martin Luther King's civil rights movement, Martin Luther King never had more than 100 people on his staff, and that was only for 1 or 2 movements. He never had more than $500,000 a year to try to change the world. None of us had a blueprint. But what he taught us to do, and what we learned from Gandhi in India, was that we could find our own way by standing up for the truth.
Well, after the civil rights movement of the 60s proved to be very, very successful, I think blacks felt that we have crossed the threshold and it's easy going from here on in. But the worst was yet to come. I kind of think we thought that the waves would continue to roll, and we did drop the ball, only to find out later that other people were making plans and were putting certain kinds of Negroes in heads of organizations and paying them well. And they became the spokespersons for black people. And they became the protectors of the plantation, being paid by white people.
I think that we left you the blueprint, we just didn't tell you where it was. It's there. But we didn't just show it to you or lay it out. You had to look at us and see what we were doing to find out how to go about that blueprint. You see, some things can't be explained to you. Some things you got to look at a person and then you got to see what it is that they're doing. The blueprint is you get an education. You don't just be in the middle of the road. You don't try to be with the kids who don't do well. You try to be the best, okay? You do as good as you can, no matter how angry people become when you're really good. You know what? Success is not easy. It is not. If it was, everybody would be successful. It takes time. It takes hard work. And just everybody is not geared for hard work. Some people want it overnight, and it's not going to happen that way. And so what you have to do is, we old people, we've laid the groundwork for you. We've already put the blueprint out there. Now, you might not like that blueprint. You might want to alter it in some way. And you can. But if you alter it and it's not for the better, you will not achieve what us old folks have achieved.
So I have a question for you. What does it mean to you to be a black male?
What is your purpose in life?
How do we reclaim our communities?
At what point do young people stop respecting their elders?
What are you doing to make your world and your community a better place?
How
do we break the cycle?
Why?
Why?
Why do so many of us live in the present tense?
What
is the last word that we can remember you by as a black man? For your last day on this earth, what is a word that we can remember you by?
The last word as a black man that I would like to be remembered by is warrior.
Sincere.
Motivated.
dedicated,
the proper balance,
family-oriented,
honesty.
And as a student of Baha'u'llah,
he's seen the light and changed.
Creative, because if you don't know, man, I'm the creator.
Thoughtful.
Responsibility.
Empowerment.
Danny Simmons, artist.
Father, I think, is the greatest thing a black man can be. Father.
So thank you for Jenny for that welcome, and Bayete for being here and making this wonderful piece of work, and to all of you. My name is John Goff. I'm going to be your moderator for the evening. I'm a grad student at Duke. I'm a Master of Fine Arts and Documentary and Experimental Arts student. Prior to coming here, I'd say I'd spent about 8 years doing social justice documentary work as a cinematographer and a camera operator, and currently my own personal work explores the Gullah Geechee culture in coastal Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, and how property and civic involvement sort of contribute to that lineage in light of the recent tragedy in Charleston. So I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. We can start down at the end. And at the end of your introduction, I'd like you to state the final word that you would like to be remembered by, as they did in the video here.
Hello. My name is Doug Coleman, and I'm a employee at Duke and a lifelong educator, originally from Los Angeles. And I guess for me, the last word, I was thinking as they were speaking, the last word that I think I would try to yell from my lips as I went would be the word justice.
Testing. My name is Gilbert Brooks. I'm a junior at Duke University studying computer science. The last word, is it the last word we want to say or the last word that we want to be remembered as? Okay, I would want to be remembered as selfless.
Originally from Brooklyn, New York. The word that I would like to be remembered is responsible.
Good evening. My name is Mari Jackson. I'm a senior at the North Carolina School of Science and Math, and I would like to be remembered as determined.
There we go, testing. My name is Dasha Callender. I'm also a senior at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. The word that I would like to be remembered by is inspirational.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Johnson. I am an intern with Urban Hope Youth Ministries here in Durham. And the last word I want to be remembered by is empowering.
We're here talking about the blueprint. So I'd like to start with Imam Muhammad. Did anyone leave you a blueprint? And if so, whose blueprint are you following?
I believe that my grandparents and all those great freedom fighters, they did leave the blueprint. And the blueprint was morality. It was faith, and it was the sense of community. As the gentleman mentioned on the video, for me to look at words of what they left, that wasn't it. For me to observe what they did. And that's what the media encourages us today, with these Nike commercials. Just do it. I just did what I saw my grandparents do. I did what I saw those persons who was being productive and protecting the community and being right there in the grassroots. I tried to emulate what I saw them actually do.
So I'm just going to moderate this conversation. Hopefully you guys can direct questions to each other, but as a prompt, Maury had a question that he sent me via email, and I want you to go ahead and pose your question to the men on this stage.
I just feel being a part of the younger generation, I feel like a lot of older generations, I guess, characterize my generation as a lot less respectful, a lot more foolish, not having as many morals. I guess overall, simply just not up to par with older generations, and we're just going downhill. So I have why do you guys think that may be the case? Whether it be parenting or I guess society, just different things. Why do you guys think that's the case? Or I guess our generation downturn or downfall?
Well, I think some of it is kind of a natural progression as you get older. You start getting a little more crotchety. You start being a little more exact on how you want things. And I know for me as a young man, I live by the fly a little bit more, a little more loosey-goosey, a little less responsible maybe. But I think that's also natural. I think that's a natural state for young people to be. But I know for me, I can't lie, and my daughter's in the audience and she'll testify that as I get older, certainly I get maybe more strict, maybe more conservative in some ways. But I also want to say, brother, that not all of us think that way. And like myself, I'm a lifelong, I work with youth ever since I've had any job, and that's what gives me faith personally, and that's what keeps me going, is working with young people and knowing that young people have the ability and the potential to bloom whenever they're ready. And as older folks, sometimes we just don't have the patience, and we want to show you one time and let you get it one time, and that's not how life always works.
And I think that every generation goes through this. I know that the older generation, when they were younger, the older people looked at them like, oh man, you know, the black community is going downhill because of these people. And I think that like every generation is going to be like that. When we get older, we're going to look at our kids and our grandkids like, man, like if only y'all were as responsible as we were back in the day. So I think every generation goes through that, and it's just a cycle that happens. Like you said, when you get older, you just start feeling certain ways. Nobody did as good as you did.
I guess I have a question. I'm going to pose this question to Gilbert. Since the prerequisite for being up here is quite simple, that you're black and you're male, I want to ask the question, when did you discover you were black?
Oh, that's a tough one. No, I always knew and self-identified as black. I think I had a higher. I don't know. I think what it means to be black now, or what it could mean, or what you should do as a black man. I didn't discover that until I got to college. And so, in terms of leaving a blueprint, I don't think I was left that by a black man. I was left the blueprint by my mom. My father, he was there, but he wasn't there at the same time. So I remember when, I guess, like middle school to high school transition, he just married a younger woman. She enlisted in the military, and then he took off to Germany. You know, didn't say too much about what me and my sister should do, right? And, you know, we got letters, and he brought back like some coins from Germany, and we thought that, you know, it meant the world to us. But in terms of growing up, I never got to, like, as a black man, you know, this is what you should do, or this is the way you should go. And my question is, as a black man that, you know, that's self-identifies as that and is looking for what does it mean to be black, what should we do whenever the blueprint's not necessarily laid out and we're not told what to do in life?
Well, I think part of the equation is perception. As I listen to you explain your story, I do see a blueprint. I see your father demonstrating and showing you what not to do. And so that's another form of a plan, of an action plan. You know, if he wasn't there for you, he's showing you how to be there for yours. If he was not instrumental in your life, then he's showing you how to be instrumental in your children's life. And I think it's about perception, how we perceive things. And of course, our window of perception grows the older we get, the more experiences that we have. We tend to, you know, embrace more things. And to answer the question, I realized I was a black male when I was in third grade. And when I had a Caucasian instructor who told me, don't worry about learning too much because your mind, your brain might bust. This is in Brooklyn, New York. And back then, they were saying that most of us wouldn't even reach 18. We would either be dead or in prison. And I thank God that I'm still here today. You know, but she helped me to realize then that I can achieve all the things that she said I couldn't achieve. You know, and that was in the third grade. Tough for a little fellow.
Dasha, I want to get you into the conversation. So you attend the Durham, help me out with it. North Carolina School of Science, residential school. You're away from your, you know, community in school studying science, something that's a contradiction in of itself from what they say black men could and should be doing at your age. What are some of your experiences in terms of being in the sciences, and do you have any questions for anyone on the panel?
So me personally, when I was accepted to the North Carolina School of Science and Math, one of the faculty members at my previous high school questioned if I was being honest. She asked me, I thought that school was pretty prestigious. I thought students had to have perfection in all aspects. And I responded to her in kind of like a giggle, because for her to look down on me because of the color of my skin, I just assumed that she was actually the unintelligent one. So that was my first experience where I had realized that not everyone is going to be a motivator for me and what I hope to accomplish in life. So my question is, when that negativity is brought upon us, which we are all facing generally every day throughout our lives through society, what can we do to make sure that we're not losing sight of who we are and letting society push us down to the point where we follow what they expect us to be?
Well, my advice would be do exactly what you did. Laugh. Laugh at them, because you know that you're achieving more and that you will be achieving more. And just continue doing that. Use that as your motivation to push yourself forward. Because I know when people are like, looking down on me, 'cause I know when I graduated from high school, I went to my middle school and saw my principal. And she was like, "Oh man, I didn't even think you would make it out of high school." And I was like, "What?" And so and then that just really encouraged me to be like, okay, well, let me go finish college. Let me do this. Let me do that. Because, if you're having this much doubt in me, I love, proving people wrong. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I do it all the time. And so, just make sure you put them in their place with your actions. Don't be like your words and be the angry black person, because people always want to put that label on us that we're the angry black people, are just race is just always angry, but we're not. Just show them with your actions, to fight some of that stereotype.
I want to turn the lens back on us, reflecting on black men. So, Doug, as a father of a young woman, how do you feel about the way black men treat women?
Got a chuck on the audience. I would say definitely scared in some ways, knowing how I personally have treated black women and women, period. Just coming up in the 80s and 90s, being a hip-hop baby, misogyny and whatnot was a very strong theme in life. And even though I was raised by civil rights folk, that stuff, it creeps in. It's very powerful. None of us are raised in our families and our homes out of context. So I guess the reality is I know I cannot sit on my daughter's shoulder. I can't walk behind her with my shotgun. I can't stand in front of her with a shield 24/7. So what I've tried to do is help her be strong and tell her all the time that she's intelligent and beautiful and capable, and also tease her and challenge her and push her, because I know at a certain point I can't save her. No matter how much I want to, no matter how much I would give anything in my life to do it, I can't. So she's got to be strong enough to save herself.
Oh, Gilbert has a question that can piggyback off of that in terms of male-female relationships.
Male-female relationships in terms of hip-hop or just in general?
In general in life.
Okay, so there's a lot of people to say that domestic abuse is one way, right? There's a lot of research, there's a lot of statistics that could either back that up or, if you dig deep enough, not back that up, that could go against that. So how do we have the conversation that, domestic abuse is wrong regardless of who the victim is, right, or who the oppressor is? How do we have that conversation where if you kind of, you whisper that, there's more things going on than just the man hitting a woman? How do you navigate those spaces whenever those people that you're trying to convey that message to, they kind of shut down, right? They don't really want to hear the other side. Because the way that I was explaining it to John, when you have two diseases, right, and maybe one kills you faster, but at the end of the day, if you don't take care of both of them, they're both going to kill you, right? Specifically in terms of black female, black male relations, how do you navigate these spaces and how do you have these conversations?
Imam, help us out.
Well, I think the first thing is you have to speak a word directed to the right. And if you don't speak a word directed to the right, you will also hurt the situation. You may hurt the person unwillingly. So, you know, in regards to our religious background, you know, coming from a faith perspective, you know, men are supposed to be the maintainers and protectors of women, not the abusers of women, nor are women to be abusers of men. And you know, this is a panel that I'll be on at the end of the month in regards to dealing with this issue. And, you know, it's a serious epidemic. And we have to be truthful. We have to speak directly to it. And, you know, empower our women to know, because predominantly, the statistics predominantly is more women being abused than men. And the few that are men that are, you know, we have to work with them to get them their strength back as well. But it's a serious epidemic, but we have to have honest discussion, honest conversation, just like we're doing now. If we don't talk about it, I remember I seen a post today. Someone sent me a post today of a woman being abused. And I said that and I very rarely respond to posts like this. But the spirit was moving in me, and I said, she should accidentally post his location, his name and his location, and let justice be served.
Well, we could unpack that a little bit more, and I hate to be literal with it, but I do want to dig deeper on this topic. Like, even in high school, how do you find yourself speaking to women? You know, what type of language are you using? Like, how are you approaching them? You can be honest. No one else is here. It's just darkness.
But your mother will see this video.
Well, personally, raised in a family of 4 women and no male in the household, I kind of learned a little bit about respect towards women, which I guess gives me a slight upper hand in conversation. So I guess I would say that it's mainly just like knowing the audience, which goes for any kind of interactions, knowing that there is a certain level of respect that they deserve, because things that I've seen black women do within my own home surpasses anything that I've seen outside those doors. So women do deserve respect, and that's something that needs to be facilitated through all men, and something that isn't a lot in high school.
Yeah, I agree. It's fine to flirt, it's fine to play around, whatever. But when it gets to the point of you treating women like objects, or women like they're replaceable, that's when you take it to a too high of a level. So I feel like, personally, I think as long as you know what your surroundings are, like Dasha said, and actually respect who you're talking to, then no problem should arise.
Robert, so you work in the faith community, right? How do you hold your head when everyone else around you is sort of going the other way? How are you able to work in your faith and to hold on to your beliefs when it seems like everything we see in popular culture sort of contradicts that?
Well, I'll say it's on. Okay. It's hard. It's not easy, but I have a great spiritual community, and so I live in the house with Duke Divinity students and also people who work in the same ministry that I do, and so we're always encouraging each other. And then when I'm just out and about with friends or with people, they just already expect me to, drop a word here, say something, spiritual to them. And so, when people are expecting you to do that, it's a lot easier to keep it going than if nobody was expecting it. But I say that just having people in my life, like I've put people in my life, and people just came to my life to just encourage me in my faith and keep me walking on the right path so that I can help other people and, be that person in someone else's life.
What are you afraid of? Do you have any fears in this world?
Yeah, I have a lot. Granddaddy long legs, I hate those. That's like my worst fear. I don't really care for snakes. One, like the big things, I know what you're getting at. So, not being successful is like a really big thing for me. And like I define success as like happiness and happiness in my time. So if I feel like my time is being well spent and I'm happy doing what I'm doing, I feel like the success is there. And I'm always afraid that I'm going to get stuck in some dead-end job, or I'm going to, work just to pay bills and live check to check and things like that. And that's one of the real fears. That's like one of the main reasons why I work so hard. I just am always looking for new hustles because I don't want to get stuck in a dead-end job or stuck just feeling unsuccessful.
So you mean to tell me that success is, or the attainment of success and not police is your biggest fear? I swore the black man's biggest fear was walking outside and getting shot, so we have other concerns. Share with me, guys. Talk to me around this subject.
Well, my biggest fear for us as black men is that we lose the respect for mother. And if we lose the respect for mother, we're going to speak to any woman just anyway. If we can return and get that love and that respect back from mother and inspire mother to be mother and to be all that she can be, and because she is really the lead. She's the lead of the house. She's the lead. She's the first educator. And if we can get her, who usually sacrifice all that she can sacrifice for us to all do what we do, if we can get that back as young black men in our community, we can get that back, I think that'll put us on the blueprint to success.
I have a question. So in this day and time, we see that a lot of our African-American men are a part of gangs and things of the nature that get them locked up and things like that. What is our way as men who are trying to do better and things like that, trying to make sure that we stay on the straight and narrow? How do we reach out to those people? Because those individuals are the ones that aren't really looking to listen to what we have to say. Because if I were to approach one of my friends from back home, they'd be like, Dasha, go back to school, man, hit the books, stuff like that. Because, I mean, that's what I've done. Or go hoop. It's not that side of where I come from I'm not supposed to be a part of. But I don't know how to pull them out from where they are, because some of them all see that as being the only option.
So, as I say with my daughter, like, you can't save another man. That man got to save himself. But you can definitely be somebody that shows them that there's other options. So, like, among the things I do, I mentor a second grade boy at a local elementary school. And he has no father figures. He doesn't, the person he has to look up to is his cousin who's a blood who drives a Monte Carlo. And that's what is exciting for him. And that's what he talks about. And that's, in terms of success and fame, that's what he sees. And so I don't go there and I don't shoot down his cousin and I don't dog out what he's had to do to survive in his life. I just show him, I do things a little different. And, I don't wear the same clothes. I don't speak the same way. Maybe I tell different jokes, but like, he can take things from me without even knowing it. He's a child. He's gonna absorb stuff even if he doesn't want to. And so to me, you being present, not just with your peers, but really think of yourself now as someone who's in a position to start mentoring younger children. Because I'm going to tell you, when I go talk to him, the first thing he says is, ooh, you so old, and what's wrong with your hairline? And from there, that's a bridge I gotta cross. With y'all, you step in and right away, he's looking at y'all like y'all Superman, right? Because, you're just old enough where you can do certain things, but still young enough to relate and be relevant for him. And so I just personally would encourage you to get organized and get involved with some sort of give back. And you will see also how fulfilling that is for you. And, you're always working on something to help right now, right? So you're talking to that young man, but it's also like planting that seed for the future. You never know in 10 years what he's going to have gotten from what you said. And having been an educator a long time, I go back to California, and there's kids who I taught in like 97, and they repeat verbatim little slogans and mantras that I gave them. And it boggles the mind because I don't even remember them. And these young men, they come up, don't you remember? And we saw this movie together, and we had this discussion. And I go, yeah, kind of. But for them, it was very meaningful. It was meaningful for me too, but it was meaningful for them. And they kept and they held on to that. And then they built it. And then hopefully, God is good. What's going to happen is they're going to run into another brother who says similar things. And they're going to go, oh, wait, that wasn't just a one-off. That wasn't just a unicorn. Like, that's a blueprint. We can start putting these pieces together. And as a person who did not have his father around, like a lot of us, I had to start putting pieces together. So I looked at Malcolm X. I looked at characters from movies that I liked, Furious Styles. A couple brothers know Furious Style. Y'all know. And so you put these pieces together, and that becomes who you are. And you say, this is my role model. This is who I want to be able to step up and speak like and act like. This is the kind of respect that I want to get. You build that for yourself, and you build that for that young brother.
And for your peers, like when you're working with your peers, just be present. Because if they see that you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing, and that it might not be easy, but you are pushing hard, and you just encourage them, like, yeah, man, why don't you come do this with me? Like, come to this, like, talk or this forum or this, discussion with me. And, they start seeing that, they can do other things, that they don't have to be out on the street. Then, you plant that little seed in them to saying, maybe, there's something more than this. And that seed, trust me, will just grow. Because that seed wants to grow. They just don't have it planted yet. So just, just be present with them and just talk and just be yourself. Be friends with them. But just have in the back of your mind that you need to help cultivate their, their success.
Like he said, I feel like at our age, there's only so much we can do, but that's to our benefit as well, being that we can relate to them. So personally, I try my best to just break the social norm, break the status quo, and not fall victim to what society labels me as. A black male who has nothing going for himself, he'll wind up either in prison or dead or whatever. So that's personally what I set out to do every day. Just not fall victim to what society labels me as, and just be a great example for my fellow classmates and friends back home and things like that. Just to show them that, it is possible to not have to follow a gang or hang out with friends and drink and smoke and things like that. You can have something going for yourself. You can make something out of yourself and achieve great things. So that's personally what I try and do every day.
I want to ask one more question to all of you before we open up to our community, because I see a lot of black men in this audience here. I'd like to get them in this discussion. But how do we deal with difference? I'm going to ask Gilbert a targeted question first, and then I'd like everyone to sort of jump in on this one and keep this dialogue going. But I cheated. I had a safe passage into adulthood. I started at Morehouse College, so surrounded by nothing but black men. So I didn't have to deal with, there's difference, but the big difference is everyone was pretty much on the same level. So how is it being at Duke University as a black man in this era of shootings and killings and nooses on campus and things of that nature? How do you feel when someone sitting next to you may not have to deal with the same external pressures of society? How do we deal with difference around race, around sexuality. We've talked about gender a little bit, but let's talk about race and sexuality a little bit.
All right, so for me, dealing with the differences it isn't as hard because I don't know. I think I grew up where a lot of we grew up all in the same socioeconomic background, right? And that's being black, being white, being Hispanic, whatever you were. We were all the same. So it was easier for me to see there wasn't the only thing that was different was our race, right? It was our color. But I mean, I can tie this into one of my fears is getting away from what it means to be black, right? What it means, what's your responsibility? And so being at Duke I think it's difficult to, you're in Durham, which is predominantly a black area, but it's so easy just to stay on campus and see nothing but success, surround yourself with nothing but success, and not really reach back. And for me, that's really difficult coming from where I come from. And when I look at some brothers beside me that don't have the same experiences as I do, and they don't know why I go off campus, or they don't know why I go and help out here, or why I go back home and do what I do, they can't really relate with me. So that's very uncomfortable when you're in those situations, when you feel like, we're the only two black people in this course, right? But your definition of black and what it means to be black to me is so different. And I don't know, it's difficult to navigate, but what we're trying to do is, there's already established groups on campus, right? There's different lanes you can go, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so we're trying to make sure there's a lane for people that don't actually want to pick a lane, per se, which is kind of ironic in itself, but that's what my group of friends do. We're a very diverse group of guys. We're not all black, but for the most part, the blackness it's different in all of us.
I think you threw out a great another level of difference that isn't talked about enough, which is class. Yeah. So to keep that conversation going, Doug, do you have anything? How do we deal with difference?
When you started talking about it, I actually I thought about it in two ways, which is kind of like the internal stuff, and I know that's a challenge. Myself, I'm of mixed heritage, and so that's so things like diversity and the different shades we come in within our community is something that's kind of been the forefront of my experience, and having been raised by kind of radical progressive parents, for me, things like supporting gay, lesbian, and bisexual, transgender brothers and sisters is something that I do. And I can't lie, being a heterosexual male, I have my own homophobic stuff that's in my head, but it's not that's not what's acceptable to me. And so for me, I try to embrace all my black people. Now, at the same time, there are some black folk who, for me, are divisive or dangerous in terms of our community. Various kinds of politicians or professionals. Sometimes it's law enforcement. And so that becomes difficult. I have a cousin that's a sheriff, and I love him. But I don't love the fact that he works in the gang unit at LA County Sheriff, So that's a challenge for me, and I'm not going to lie. But I just think that as a community, it's really important for us to accept us. You have to like everything that we do. Not everybody on this panel is going to listen to the same kind of music. But Lord knows, when the flood comes, this is going to be the people that's going to help us. And so for me, I feel like all of us have a right to do our thing. And I can't say I don't judge, but I try not to condemn. And so that's what I thought about. And then just real quick, I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but on the outside, I was thinking about diversity and the importance of it and how diversity is strength. And the program that I run is all about trying to make things more diverse. And just think about, there's not one kind of chicken, there's 100 kinds of chickens, right? Because if a disease comes along that kills chickens, and there's only one kind of chickens, it's a wrap, KFC, he's done. But we got 100 kinds of chickens. And so diversity is that strength, it's that power. It gives us that breadth as humanity. So it's a good thing.
The way that I usually handle differences, because I have my thinking, I have my faith, but I look at the human excellence, the human decency, the honorable and noble way of the human being, of that person. And I've always been focused on that. So, irregardless to whether or not I disagree with your philosophical way or your, alternative lifestyle, whatever, it doesn't affect me as long as we can relate on the human excellence piece. And I welcome and willing to work with anyone in any organization that exudes this, this human excellence.
Well, going to the North Carolina School of Science and Math, it is definitely a very diverse population made up of predominantly white or Asian students. So with that being said, we find in the black community, we find it very important to make sure that we are addressing certain topics and reaching out to people like that don't really know exactly why some people are so upset about things that are going on in society. A short example would be an African-American male that was tased at the Harris Teeter down the street from our school. There not being a record for a reason why he was tased or a probable cause for him being tased. So some of the African-American students were furious about the situation. It's a place that we tend to go down the street to buy groceries every day. So for that being said, we try to reach out to the people in our community, help them understand that what's going on, so that they can stand by us, know they're not the same as us, they don't feel the same pain that we feel, and they don't go through the same strife that we go through. But I do believe that there is strength in numbers, and if not only the black males and the black females are making noise about certain situations, but we also have Asian females, Asian males, and Chinese, and etc. We're making a difference because we've reached out to that many people, and we're making that much more of a difference within our entire community.
Well, I never really had much struggle dealing with diversity. I went to high school at Durham School of the Arts, extremely diverse high school. My friends have always been multicultural. My uncle, he's homosexual, and his partner is white. And so, growing up with them, going to visit them every summer, it's just that certain things I didn't have to wrap my brain around because it was just already, this is the norm. And so, but going to college, I went to an HBCU, Fayetteville State University, the best HBCU in the world, by the way. I got to meet other black people who I was like, yeah, I'm going to HBCU. We're all black, and then I come to find out just like black people is just as diverse as everybody else. And I might get along with this black person, but then this black person, I'm like, your ideas are just crazy. And so, it's just, that was like the real struggles, like wrapping my brain around the diversity inside of our culture. But it just took me like talking to people. Like if somebody's ideas were like completely different than mine, which most people's are, we just talk. And then it's like, okay, we agree to disagree. I still think you're crazy, but I understand you now. So that's how I worked it out.
I have a question for you guys. Being that our school is approximately about 8% African American, the rest mostly white and Asian, how do you guys deal with certain topics regarding racism and how you speak your mind about certain topics with other races and nations?
Can I just say be bold? Like when you are talking about your racism and things like that, people expect you to shy away from the topic or, to not really go in depth into it. Forget all that. Just go straight forward, straight towards the target, and just be real with them because they're not going to understand like how you're feeling if you're beating around the bush, if you're not really being straightforward with them. And I mean, some people might, be kind of put off by that, but, you shouldn't have to watch what you're saying about how you're feeling about a topic that directly impacts you because somebody's just a tad bit uncomfortable.
Call everybody out. Say, if y'all sit there and say nothing, you just as guilty as the person committing the infraction. So that is what you should always do. If you feel like there's an injustice being committed and no one else is speaking up, speak up and let those silent people know that you know that they're being silent and they see what you see. And so that's how you speak up about racism, no matter where you are.
Yeah, I agree. I usually, I tell people, racism is not a human problem. It's a mind problem. And so, as I tell these young men that I take care, you never will change your behavior until you change your thinking. So, the racism is a mind problem. And I've had an older gentleman, after doing a speech, he asked me a question. He wanted to stand up. Of course, I'm black, I'm Muslim, he older white male. He stand up and so convince me and tell me why you're not a terrorist like that. And yeah, so what I did to him, what I said to him is in line with what you're saying about being bold and direct. I said, well, not all Muslims are terrorists. And I said, no different than not all Christians are part of the KKK, part of the Christian Knights of Columbus. And he sat down. Conversation was over. So they're doing things in the name of Christ in their own way, and then so it made him really reflect. Not all Christians are a part of the KKK, so it may make sense that not all Muslims are terrorists.
Let's open it up to our community here. If anyone has any questions, we have microphones here and here, and we ask that you ask them from the microphones, just so that we can hear everyone.
Hey, brother, and find those allies too. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be some of your staff and faculty.
Oh, okay.
Go back you up.
My name is Maria. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Maria. I'll try to be a little bit lighter. I have two questions. The first question is just yes or no. Is there ever a time that you, as a black male, not a time, excuse me, a place where you feel like you can let your guard down?
Yes.
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 Yes. No.
Yes.
And where is that place?
Whenever I'm with my group of friends, it doesn't matter where we are. We're just going to let our hair down, be crazy, be loud. It doesn't matter. We could be in the middle of a KKK rally, and we're just going to be going crazy. So,
In the presence of my mother.
I guess my group of friends back home.
At home?
In the bathroom by myself?
I thought about that.
Thank you for your answers, and I really would just want to commend and applaud everybody, but especially the young guys. I'm just so proud to see you young guys here, meaning specifically in high school and college, 25 and under. My other question or comment is, where is your power as black men collectively? Very often, and I'm not saying I don't have Drake on my cell phone, but I get frustrated when I hear the music, the misogynistic lyrics, the degrading words and the energy that it provides. And I get it, some people truly listen to the music for the beats or whatever, but I challenge you to think about your image when somebody else is beside you and they don't know anything about you and they hear that coming out of your car or hear it coming out of your mouth, which God knows I hope that you guys don't talk like that. So just a challenge is, where's your power collectively as black males? Thank you.
Thank you.
It was the blueprint, right? No. Ho? No?
Thank you. I would like to ask, what 3 seeds would you all like to plant for the future generation?
I think brother beside me right here said one perfectly earlier. Respect for the mother. So I'll offer that one. I think once you can see the respect, and I think the problem, also like another problem, is when you don't have the mother there to respect. There's like a whole piece of you missing. This is the same when you don't have a father there. So I can only imagine what that feels like. But I think that's where that's like one seed I would like to plant, the respect for the woman, for the mother.
And then me personally, it would be like the strength to advocate for yourself, because a lot of times, as the younger generation, we're not sure what to say or when to say it or who we can say it around, and that's something from the older generation that can be given to us because they've been through the trial and error. They know where to say certain things. They know what not to say and what to say. So that would definitely be something.
I'd like to plant the seed of economic interdependence, and for the next generation, or at least for mine, I hope, because I think the dollar circulates the quickest in the black community, like out of the community, you know. So I'd like to see that dollar circulate between us a little longer.
And I'd like to piggyback on the young brother and say self-love. And when I work with the young men and I look at what their goals are, we talk about men abusing women. Like, you know, my folks seen me yesterday holding a little girl at Githens Middle School crying over domestic violence and talking about how she's in the corner holding her doll with the door locked, scared her uncle gonna come up. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, like, of course, what's going on with this uncle, right, who's smacking people and pulling out weapons and stuff? He don't love himself. Like, how could he love that woman because he don't respect her? Because she gonna say I love you, and he don't love himself. So he's thinking she a liar, right? She a Jezebel. He don't love himself. And so when I see these young men, you know, I always think about, like, what's their self-value? What's their self-worth? You know what I'm saying? And I try to just impress upon them, like, you're unique, bruh. Like, no one on earth has ever been like you. You might be the one to save, you know? And that's the thing. It's, you know, it is interdependence, right? And understanding that we're connected and you know, you love yourself, then you can love that person next to you. Yeah, self-love.
Courage, not being afraid to fail, not being pressured into thinking that you're less than what society can allow you to be. So basically just doing what you know you can do, doing your best in all aspects of life, and just not being afraid to fail, in my opinion.
I would say I would give the advice of the rich dad. You young men go to school so that you become your own bosses, and don't go to school just to get a good job. And I can help you with that.
My one seed would be knowledge, and not so much education as in like the formal, like school, colleges, and things like that, but like just knowledge, like knowing about yourself, knowing about the people around you, about your community, about your history, and like things like that. Once you know that stuff, a lot of things will follow afterwards. And so if I could just plant that seed into my generation, the generations after me, the generations before me, that would be just awesome.
Good evening. Very interesting panel. My name is Minister Paul Scott, Messianic African Nation Ministry in Durham. And I think one of the questions that someone posed was, how do you reach the gang members in the community? One of the things that we do every weekend is we go out and give the blueprint in the form of giving out free Black history books on the corners of Durham to gang members. We think that the best way to reach the quote-unquote gang members, I hate to use that word, I would say young people on the street, is to go to them directly and put a book in their hand for free, just stand on the street corner. But my question is, a lot of times during forums, everybody talks about the 60s ending in, I guess, 1968 with the death of Dr. Martin Luther King, as if there was no radical tradition after 1968. We have almost a 50-year void where people try to convince us that there was no radical tradition after 1968, when even in Durham, all around you, there are activists that have been doing it for 20 or 30 years. Do you all feel that you all are the lost generation and somehow you all have been passed by, even though you all are making history with Black Lives Matter, whatever? Do you all feel like history has forgotten you all as well?
I don't feel like history's forgotten us or will forget us. I think when we look back, it seems like there was like everybody was doing that. Everybody was standing up for what was right. Everybody was in the streets protesting, right? But for us, we don't see everybody doing that, in terms of the black community, right? You have people on the corners that'll stand there to do whatever they need to do to get by, but, they're not, I guess in some way they see, that's what they have to do to get by, right? That's what they need to do to survive. We don't have to stay on that corner. We don't know where they come from. We don't know their life. So we can't change them, So I do find it hard and I find it difficult to just tell somebody like what you're a part of is wrong. I think it's easier to say, what you're doing is wrong, but just to make them believe that, and you coming in and saying it's wrong, it's not like you're correct, right? It's not like that's true. But I don't think it's forgotten us, but for us, it's like everybody's not working together, and I don't know where we can get to that point where it's, like I said, I wasn't here during the 60s.
Can we get somebody from the 60s to testify that everybody wasn't out there? 'Cause I think that's the misconception.
Right.
Everybody wasn't there. And I think the black radical tradition existed before the 60s, before the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Vanguard, the this and that, but the people who drove the sword, who drove it through, often they were the minority. It doesn't take away from the point of what they were doing. And in the benefits for everybody, that's probably why in your brain you say, oh, everybody was doing it, because everyone benefited from it. For instance, where you are anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say that we're the forgotten people or the forgotten generation, because I know a lot of my generation out here working and grinding for the cause. And I know that, like, my peers, my friends that, in Fayetteville, organize marches and things like that, walking down the middle of downtown Fayetteville, walking through the busiest times, holding up signs, the times like that we had like a die-in where everybody, went to the mall and just laid out. And just, we were just like, we don't support your consumerism. We don't support the way you've been treating the black people, and you don't respect our dollars. So we're gonna come here and show you how much we're not paying for yourself, how much we're not buying your products. And, and so I say just wait and watch us work, because we're not done. We're still working, we're still grinding. And, in like 10, 15 years, we're like, man, that generation really did it.
I feel like we're not really a forgetful generation, but part of it is just not being exposed to all those different situations of racism. I mean, we have come a long way, but we're nowhere near where we should be or where we need to be. So I feel like exposure is something, like a lot of kids at science and math, they've been sheltered, they've never really had experiences of racism, whether they were homeschooled or went to predominantly white schools. They never really, or had lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. They never really had to deal with racism situations, or they don't know the history behind everything that we've been through. So I feel like exposure to actual racism is what prevents some people from not really knowing what to do and how to respond in certain situations.
I like to say these young men handling their business. This is no lost generation right here. And I want you to hear that from us, because we see so many young men that we are disturbed and disgusted with. So we have to. I want you to know that we applaud you all, and you all can be that saving grace for the rest. All you can do is be a model, and just keep pushing and keep making us proud.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jamal Rashid from WDM Islamic Center.
Good evening, Jamal Rashid.
One of the things I hear all the time is about domestic violence and domestic abuse, and it seems like to me it's two different things, and I hear it mentioned like it's almost simultaneous. And my answer, and I like to hear the answer from the board, is always about expectations. I believe the core of it is whether it's the abuser or the person being abused, there's a certain level of expectations not being met. And the other thing I like to say, I like to hear everybody just discuss in terms of expectations. I have children and children and grandchildren in every different generation, from 40 to 40s on down. And what I discuss with them is always my expectations for them, my balanced expectation for them. In terms of spirituality, in terms of economics, we live in a capitalist society. So I have economics expectations to them. In terms of health, we have some deep health issues, not just in America, but in the black family. So I have, I have expectations in terms of what they do with their health. In terms of their spirituality, I have everybody in my family. I have a Jehovah's Witness, I have a Methodist, I have a born-again Christian, I'm Muslim. So I have an expectation in terms of spirituality. So I would just like I said, the idea of expectations in terms of domestic violence and just in terms of life in general.
So would you like to answer that question, please? I'll just open it up. Expectations in terms of, I'm just trying to get everybody involved in this conversation. Expectations in terms of what we have for our partners or our family members and the things that may or may not lead to violence or abuse. Anyone?
I don't. Some of this to me isn't necessarily about the It's difficult for me to say that the expectations of women or anybody else on you is the reason why somebody's not going to participate in domestic violence. I think expectations are key, but at the same time, there's base level ways that we expect to be treated as human beings. And typically, I think that's our expectation. So patriarchy and kind of sexism and a lot of the things that lead to domestic violence, to me, mirror some of the same things that we see in racism. And so analogy-wise, I'm not gonna say my expectations of white folks to not be racist against me are the reason why they're gonna not be racist. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna put that onus on other black folks, and so I wouldn't put that onus on my daughter, my wife, my mother, you know what I mean? So I just don't necessarily agree with the
Are you saying kind of like blame the victim? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly, very simple.
I think where Mr. Rashid is coming from, what he's saying is trying to awaken the consciousness to say that there's supposed to be a level of accountability, and if we, that's why I mentioned about inspiring mother, raising mother back to that noble position that she should be. And if we can achieve that, then that level of accountability is, she's looking at herself and see herself as this queen. Then when that type of brute approaches her, she can immediately dismiss it because she has a community that's, ready to, help her. So I think, that's the wording of expectations, I think, is more, accountability,
So I heard you say that earlier, and so just kind of some of the conversations I've been in, and I'm not a woman, so I think that we're getting into tricky water. So I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna defer to potentially a woman to kind of say whatever she wants to say, or whatever, you don't have to. But what I have heard from other folks is that to define a woman completely by her ability to be a mother is problematic. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but the challenge there is that it is still an expectation on this mother to be something for us, right? And while I love the idea that we're all kings and queens, I still think that at the heart of that is good because we're doing a self-image reboot. But then there's also the problematic nature of how kings and queens profit off of poor people, right? Which reinforces these ideas of the issues that we deal with that really lift up the systems of racism. Which actually gets to my question, which is how and in what ways do we create systems that render the power that reinforces racism irrelevant?
Can you say that one more time?
So, racism is reinforced by power. the fact that you don't like me because I'm black only matters because you got a lot of money. So what I want to know is how do we create systems that render your opinion of me irrelevant? Because I don't, yeah.
Interdependence.
That's what I said earlier. One of those systems is self-esteem. You know, when you have an excellent perception of yourself, and you are being empowered to achieve as God would have you to achieve, or your family, or your community, or your own inspiration, you know, then it doesn't matter to you how this person is perceiving you over here. It becomes irrelevant. I didn't go to HBCU. I went to, you know, that mixed situation. And on campus, majority who was on campus was us. And then during the regular school day, it was a mixture. And if I would succumb to what they thought of me, then I wouldn't be sitting here right now with 2 degrees. So, you know, self-esteem.
Ownership. I think you said it in your question. It's ownership. It's like, what do we own? You know, like you got a couple schools, a couple of mosques, a couple of churches. You know, like be a little bit more. Where can you hire me to work?
I would say, yeah, organization from my point of view, like, you know, it's not just going to be laws, and I don't think it's just internal stuff that we need to do. Like, I think at some level, we got to get organized, and we have to be able to stand up and have a front. And until we can collectively have a voice or collectively take a step in a direction against something, nothing moves. But to me, if you see, like, with the whole Black Lives Matter, and again, I'm working with young people who are going, they're killing more black people than ever. I'm going, baby girl, 400 years. We just have cameras now. That's the only difference. And so, but you see what happens is, people say Black Lives Matter, and they hashtag it, and they use those cameras, and they use that technology in their computers, and there's a little bump, a little oomph. Like, it's not undoing Reaganomics, but it's a little oomph. And it's maybe one more piece of legislation, or it's maybe one cop going, oh, well, damn, let me think about it. And that starts to have significant societal difference. You're right, we can't control what somebody else thinks about. I don't think we can control like what somebody else thinks about it, but with a unified front, it bounces off us more. With you know, economic interdependence, we don't have to go to them for a job all the time. If we own our own businesses, we don't have to beg all the time on bended knee. But it's got to be us coming together. We've got to start like getting our neighborhoods together, getting our communities together, looking across the diverse line and saying, I'm going to work with you regardless. This is more important than our differences.
We've got to wrap up, so let's take the last 2 questions. It's a...
kind of already on the point of the economic power. How do we raise the consciousness of knowing that our economic power will lead to political power and able to change laws or just to buy politicians at the end of the day? How do we let each other know that we have to have businesses? We have to rebuild Haytown. We have to build Fayetteville Street. And all this has to be black again. Like, how do we get other people to know that we can't just work for them, continue to work and just have a job?
Let's hold the responses. Let's get the last question, and then you guys can close it out.
Thank you for the opportunity. Actually, my question is full circle. We started off with a blueprint not being laid for the particularly younger generation. My question is, do any of you feel, particularly the younger generation, do you feel that a blueprint has not been laid? And if so, why?
Yeah, I'll speak for, so, I mean, he kind of mentioned it earlier. I mean, a lot of times when I'm writing essays for college or something, I say, you know, my father, in ways unknown to him, helped me become a better man by not being there. But then I also have to reconcile that with not giving my mother the full credit she deserves. But for, like I said, I don't know what that's like if my mother isn't who she is, right? I don't know where I am. Or even if my mother and father are together, and then like they have their own lives to live. You know, that happens a lot, and also just, I mean, for some people, that blueprint's not there, and I think that's where we come in, and we gotta, you know, be brothers to these guys and say, like, you know, there's a better life out there. I know you had it rough, but you know, at some point you gotta start loving yourself. You gotta, and that kind of goes to the economic thing. How do we raise consciousness when we see that we don't always have to work? Last summer I was working with like I was loading trucks. I didn't prepare for summer well, so I was loading trucks 10 hours a day, and you know, older brothers were working there. I'm like, you know, he's like, man, I got 8 kids, I got 9 kids. I'm here. This is what I'm doing forever. Like making $10 an hour. And I'm like, I'm complaining about it. Like, ugh, gotta get back up, gotta go to this. And I'm like, you know, we have to know that if we sacrifice now, we can have the benefits later on in life. And I think if we go out here as young men and we don't do that, like we go against that, like we succumb to the pressures, smoking, drinking, etc., then we like give up our right to go out and be bosses, and you know, it just kind of happens all over again.
Dasha Murray.
Yeah, to slightly go off on that, I don't feel like the whole blueprint was left out for me. I'm still taking different parts from different mentors, different inspirations through my life, trying to fill it in. As I go, I'm constantly trying to see exactly what the ideal home is going to look like. So I'm still drawing in different parts of the bathroom and the bedroom to this blueprint. I know what the overall is supposed to be, but it just takes time and different guidances to help put it all together.
My father is a part of my life. He's been around. He's a great father, and so I've had the great privilege of having the blueprint laid out for me. You know, my parents are still both together. I have brothers. We're still a household, and I just feel I've had the opportunity to see what it is like to raise a family, no matter what you may struggle with. My dad, he didn't have his father around. He lost his mother at a very young age, so he had to depend on other sources, and he had a lot of struggles in life. And so I just try and model him and try and just depict how he's overcome certain challenges to raise a family without even a college degree. He only has a high school degree. So I just think for me, I've been fortunate enough to have that example in my life.
I think one of the Brother Smith showed us the other night how to look at images and to read into them and to get out of it what God would have you to get out of them. There's a blueprint image of Malcolm X with a shotgun, and underneath it says, "By any means necessary." That's a blueprint, not in a negative sense that they project on him. His house was burned down. Children were in danger. He had a legal gun. He's standing by the window, and they put the picture underneath the picture and say, "By any means necessary." But most people don't know the history of behind that picture. So that's a blueprint, by any means necessary. If you want to have true freedom, then you have to acknowledge as king, as you said, but also to be independent, to be your own owner of your own business, where you determine whether or not you influence the community that you live in by hiring people. You know, you determine your own work hours so that you can write books and have other people working for you. You, by being a business owner, it opens up so many other doors and other opportunities, but the number one thing is for you to be free to do whatever God has blessed you to be able to do. Follow the blueprint of Malcolm, by any means necessary.
I feel like that I was left like a nice little chunk of a blueprint, not the whole thing. My father was passed my freshman year of college, and so it was like the integral part of my identity forming years. And like, you know, like the male in my life left. But like he taught me like just consistency and like just hard work. With those two things, you can do anything. I remember being in high school, my father was working at Bojangles because he had to, you know, feed his kids. You know, so like just knowing that like my father would humble himself to do something like that taught me that, hey, there's no job, you know, below me. There's no job, you know, that I can't do. If I have to be, you know, like sweep floors or mop, I'm gonna do that. You're gonna have to clean floors, you know. And so, and with that, that was my blueprint to just always strive to work hard, no matter what I do. Work hard at it, and then success follows. When you're working hard, success follows. You know, like just working, you know, just in fast food and things like that. I will be like, you know, taking somebody's order in fast food, and they'll offer me, like, they will like, you know, listen to my customer service, hear how, you know, friendly I'm being, see how hard I'm working at like a minimum wage job, and will, you know, offer like talk to me about, you know, offer me jobs and offer me other opportunities and things like that. Like this doors open when you know, you work hard and, you know, you humble yourself. Because everybody loves a humble person. You know, everybody wants to work with a humble person. So I feel like that the blueprint is really hard work and consistency. And, you know, and if you can get those two things under your belt, then, you know, the rest of the blueprint will slowly start, you know, forming together for you.
Yeah, I think it's this two-sided thing where on the one hand, there are historical examples like Malcolm that I know helped me and got me through hard years in my life, and that I can also use as a tool to pass on to folk behind me. But I also know that the way life is now, that, you know, everything I'm talking about is already passé. Like, you can't even email anybody anymore. You won't get a response. And so I also know that as much as I want to lay out a blueprint for youth, I also want to listen and leave room for youth to discover and design themselves a piece. Because when we think about, and I hear young people say like, well, I'm too young to do something. Like, look at the civil rights movement. Those weren't 80-year-old men. You know, China was a bunch of college kids talking about changing the country. Now they're running the freaking country. Like, youth do have power, and so for me as a youth worker, I make sure that I definitely want to set an example and be a role model and talk about things that are, you know, that I can accept and not accept, and ways in which, you know, I'm going to let you talk to a young lady in my presence and whatnot. But at the same time, I know at some level I got to back up, and it's y'all's time. And what I need to really do now is I need to get in a support position. I need to figure out what you need to move forward, and I need to get behind you and push.
Absolutely. And in terms of a blueprint, I think Bayete and his team and doing Question Bridge and opening up intergenerational dialogue is part of that blueprint. We have to talk to each other, and we have to listen to each other. And so I'd like to thank the Question Bridge team. I'd like to thank the Durham Public Library. I'd like to thank Caitlin Kelly for all of her hard work in organizing this event and the exhibit. And I'd hate to close by quoting this person, but I will, because this might be the best thing he's ever said. Jesse Jackson, you know, run Jesse, run. But he said something, he had a point, and I think, and this is an affirmation for all of us. He said, I may be black, but I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. You know, I may be a black man hunted in the streets, but I am somebody. So we are all somebody. We're affirming our somethingness by talking and listening to each other. So thank you all.